I found something in my closet that wasn't mine. A concert ticket stub from a band I'd never heard of, dated 3 weeks ago on a Tuesday night when Martha said she was at a faculty meeting. My name's Lewis, and I've been working as an accountant in St. Petersburg, Florida for the past 15 years. Martha teaches 5th grade at Bayview Elementary. We'd been married nearly 20 years, had 2 teenagers, Oliver, 17, and Catherine, 15, and a golden retriever named Biscuit who greeted me at the door every evening like I was the most important person in the world. If only my wife had shown half that enthusiasm. The ticket stub sat in my palm like a tiny piece of evidence I didn't want to believe. I'd found it wedged in the pocket of a jacket Martha rarely wore, the one hanging in the back of our bedroom closet. I was looking for my old windbreaker when I spotted it. Martha came home that evening around 6, her usual time. She dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her shoes, and headed straight for the kitchen without really looking at me. That had become normal over the past year. This distance between us that had grown so gradually I'd barely noticed it happening. "How was your day?" I asked, following her. "Fine. Exhausting. David's parents are demanding another conference about his grades." She opened the refrigerator and stared inside like the answers to life's questions were hidden behind the milk. I held up the ticket stub. "Found this in your jacket." She glanced at it, and I watched her face carefully. No surprise, no panic, just a flicker of annoyance. "Oh, that? Cindy gave it to me. She couldn't use it." "Cindy," I repeated. Cindy was her colleague, another teacher at Bayview. "Yes, Lewis. Cindy. Is this an interrogation?" I pocketed the stub. "Just asking." But I wasn't just asking anymore. I was noticing. Not the superficial things. Martha hadn't changed her appearance or started dressing differently. It was subtler than that. She'd become critical. Of me specifically. "You really should exercise more, Lewis. You're getting soft around the middle. Why do you always load the dishwasher that way? It's so inefficient. I don't know why you bother with that fantasy football league. It's such a waste of time." Every comment felt like a tiny cut, and I couldn't understand where this contempt had come from. We'd had our ups and downs like any couple, but this felt different. She was comparing me to something or someone, and I was coming up short. My first marriage had ended badly. My ex-wife had cheated on me with my former best friend when I was 30. I'd sworn I'd never let myself be blindsided like that again. Martha's first marriage had also ended in divorce, though she'd always been vague about the details. Maybe that should have been a warning sign. 2 weeks after finding the ticket stub, Martha announced she needed to attend a weekend workshop in Tampa for professional development. Tampa was only about 30 minutes away, but she'd be staying overnight at the conference hotel. "Both nights?" I asked. "Yes, both Saturday and Sunday. The sessions run late." Something in my gut told me this was wrong. I called Cindy on Friday evening, kept it casual. "Hey Cindy, it's Lewis. Martha left her phone charger here. Can I drop it off at your hotel in Tampa this weekend?" Silence on the other end. Then, "Lewis, I'm not going to Tampa. There's no workshop this weekend." My blood ran cold. "Are you sure?" "Positive. The district hasn't scheduled any professional development until November." I thanked her and hung up. My hands were shaking. Saturday morning, Martha packed a small overnight bag while I pretended to read the newspaper. Oliver was at a friend's house, and Catherine was upstairs with headphones on, lost in her own teenage world. Biscuit lay at my feet, sensing my tension. "Have a good workshop," I said as Martha headed for the door. "Thanks. I'll call you tonight." I waited exactly 15 minutes, then got in my car and followed the route toward Tampa. But Martha's car didn't take I-275 north toward the conference hotels. Instead, she headed east on I-4, then took a series of turns through residential neighborhoods in St. Petersburg itself, ending up at a modest apartment complex about 20 minutes from our place. I parked down the street and watched. Martha got out of her car, pulled out her overnight bag, and walked up to a second-floor apartment. She didn't knock, she had a key. She let herself in like she'd done it 100 times before. I sat there for 3 hours. My mind was racing through scenarios, but I needed proof. I needed to know who was in that apartment. Finally, I got out and walked casually past the building, noting the apartment number, 2C. The mailbox for 2C had a name, J. Whitmore. That evening, I did what any accountant would do. I investigated. Social media, public records, anything I could find. John Whitmore, widower, father of a 5th grader named Emma at Bayview Elementary. His wife had died from cancer 2 years ago. He worked in construction management. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Martha had met him through school, probably at a parent-teacher conference or school event. She'd been his son's teacher. No, wait, Emma was a daughter. His daughter's teacher. I spent that night on the couch, telling Catherine her mother's workshop was running late, and she'd decided to stay an extra night. Biscuit curled up beside me, his warm presence the only comfort I had. Martha came home Sunday afternoon, cheerful and relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in months. The workshop was so valuable, she said, unpacking her bag. I learned so many new strategies for classroom management. I wanted to confront her right there, but something held me back. Anger, yes, but also a cold calculation. If I confronted her now, she'd lie, deny, and I'd have nothing concrete except my own surveillance. I needed more. I needed her to reveal the truth herself. Over the next week, I became someone I didn't recognize. I checked her phone while she showered, password protected now, which it hadn't been before. I looked through her email on the family computer, nothing obvious, but she'd recently created a new account I didn't have access to. I went through her car and found receipts from restaurants we'd never been to together. The criticism continued. Louis, you're so boring lately. All you do is work and watch TV. Why don't you ever plan anything spontaneous anymore? I feel like I'm living with a roommate, not a husband. Each comment was designed to make me feel inadequate, to justify what she was doing. I recognized the pattern now. She was rewriting our history, convincing herself that I was the problem, that her affair was somehow my fault. I confided in my older brother David, who lived in Orlando. We met for lunch on a Wednesday, when I told my office I had a dental appointment. Get a lawyer, David said immediately. Document everything. Florida's a no-fault state, but judges still consider adultery when dividing assets. I want more than assets, I said quietly. David studied me. What do you mean? She's made me feel worthless for months, David. She's been sleeping with this man while coming home and criticizing everything about me. I want her to understand what she's done. I want consequences. Be careful, Louis. Revenge can eat you alive. But I wasn't thinking about revenge yet. I was thinking about justice. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Oliver approached me one evening in October, when the Florida heat was finally breaking and the evenings were getting cooler. Dad, is Mom having an affair? My heart stopped. Why would you ask that? I heard her on the phone last week. She was in her car in the driveway, but her window was down. She said something about missing someone and wishing she could be with them. It didn't sound like she was talking to Cindy. I sat down heavily. What else did you hear? Something about Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. And she called whoever it was Jay. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Martha got out of school at 3:30. She usually wasn't home until after 5 on those days, claiming she had after-school meetings or was helping students with extra tutoring. The next Tuesday, I left work early, telling my boss I had a family emergency. I drove to Bayview Elementary and parked where I could see the teacher's parking lot. At 3:45, Martha emerged from the building, got in her car and drove, not toward home, but toward that same apartment complex. I followed at a distance. She parked, went up to 2C, let herself in with her key. I took photos with my phone. The car, the building, her entering with her key, the time stamp on each image. Then I drove to a coffee shop and waited. At 5:15, she emerged, got in her car, and drove home. That night at dinner, she complained that the after-school tutoring session had been particularly draining. Some of these kids just don't want to learn, she said, spearing a piece of chicken with unnecessary force. I wanted to throw my knowledge in her face, but I remained calm. That sounds frustrating. Catherine looked between us, sensing something, but not sure what. Oliver kept his eyes on his plate. I repeated my surveillance on Thursday. Same pattern. Martha to the apartment, emerging 2 hours later. On Friday evening, Martha mentioned that John Whitmore had invited her to a concert the following week. Emma's father, she clarified. He has an extra ticket and thought I might enjoy it. It's that band I mentioned, Velvet Horizon. The same band from the ticket stub I'd found weeks ago. She was being so brazen now, not even bothering to hide it properly. Or maybe she wanted me to know. Maybe she wanted me to be the one to end things, so she could play the victim. Sure, I said. Sounds fun. She looked almost disappointed that I hadn't objected. That weekend, I made my decision. I contacted a divorce attorney named Patricia Kensington, who came highly recommended. I showed her everything, the photos, the timeline, Oliver's testimony about the phone call, the fake Tampa workshop. You have a solid case, Patricia said. In Florida, Adultery doesn't directly affect the division of assets in most cases, but it can influence things like alimony and the judge's overall view of the proceedings. What do you want? The apartment, I said. Full custody of the kids, or at least primary custody. And I want her to know that her actions have real consequences. Patricia nodded. We can work with this. But Louis, be prepared. Divorce is ugly, even when you're in the right. The following Tuesday, while Martha was at John Whitmore's apartment, I drove there myself. I'd done more research on John. He was 43, had worked for the same construction company for 15 years, seemed well-liked by colleagues according to his LinkedIn profile. His daughter Emma was in Martha's class. I knocked on apartment 2C. John Whitmore answered, tall, fit, with graying hair and tired eyes. He looked confused. Can I help you? I'm Louis Patterson, Martha's husband. The color drained from his face. She's not here. I know. She won't be here for another hour. Can I come in? He stepped aside, his hands shaking. We sat in his modest living room. There were photos of his late wife on the wall, smiling and vibrant. Emma's artwork covered the refrigerator visible from where I sat. How long? I asked. 3 months, he said quietly. I swear, I didn't know she was married at first. She told me she was divorced. By the time I found out the truth, I was all ready. He trailed off. In love with her? He shook his head. I don't know. Lonely, maybe. My wife died 2 years ago, and I've been trying to give Emma stability, but it's hard. Martha was kind to Emma at school, and we started talking at a parent-teacher conference. She invited me to coffee. It progressed from there. She told you she was divorced, I repeated. Yes. Then about a month ago, Emma mentioned something about Mrs. Patterson's husband, and I realized Martha had lied. When I confronted her, she said you two were separated, living together for the kids but planning to divorce. She made it sound like a technicality. We're not separated. We share a bed. We're married in every sense of the word, or we were, until she decided to spend her Tuesday and Thursday afternoons here. John put his head in his hands. I'm sorry. I should have ended it when I found out, but she kept saying it was complicated, that you were controlling, that she couldn't just leave. There it was, the narrative Martha had constructed. I was the villain in her story, the reason she couldn't be happy. I'm filing for divorce, I said. I have evidence of the affair, photos, timeline, witnesses. I wanted you to know because Emma's going to be affected by this too. When this comes out, the school district might have questions about a teacher having an affair with a parent. John's eyes widened. The school. I hadn't thought about that. Martha's not just risking our marriage. She's risking her career, your reputation, and both our family's stability. For what? Afternoon encounters in an apartment. I stood up to leave, then turned back. One more thing. She doesn't love you. She loves the idea of you, the escape, the excitement, the validation that she's still desirable. But she's not leaving me for you, John. She's just using you to avoid dealing with whatever's broken inside her. I left him sitting there and drove home. Martha came back at her usual time, cheerful and oblivious. She kissed my cheek, something she hadn't done in weeks, and started preparing dinner. That night, after the kids went to bed, I sat with her in our living room. Biscuit lay between us, his head on my lap. Martha, are you happy? She looked startled by the question. What do you mean? In our marriage. Are you happy? She hesitated. I don't know. Sometimes. Why are you asking? Because you've been distant. Critical. Like you're trying to push me away. That's not true, she said, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. If you're unhappy, we should talk about it. Really talk. Maybe consider counseling. For a moment, I thought she might confess. Her mouth opened, and I could see the war happening behind her eyes. But then she shook her head. I'm fine, Louis. Just stressed with work. I'm sorry if I've been short with you. She chose the lie. Even when given an opportunity to come clean, she chose deception. Okay, I said. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. That was my last olive branch, and she didn't take it. The following week, I had the divorce papers prepared. Patricia advised me to serve them strategically. At her workplace, in front of colleagues. It sends a message and creates witnesses to her reaction. But I had a different idea. On Thursday afternoon, I called John Whitmore. Is Martha there? Yes, he said cautiously. Good. Stay there. Both of you. I drove to the apartment complex with Patricia and a process server. We knocked on apartment 2C at exactly 4:30 p.m. John answered. Behind him, Martha stood frozen, her face white as paper. Martha Patterson, the process server said, handing her the envelope. "You've been served." She took the papers with trembling hands. "Louis, what is this?" "Divorce papers. Citing adultery. I have photos, timeline, witnesses. It's all documented." John stepped back, and I could see the realization hitting him. He was named in the filing as the correspondent. "You can't do this," Martha said, her voice rising. "Louis, please, let's talk about this privately. Like you talked to me before sleeping with your student's father?" "No, Martha. You made your choices. Now you live with the consequences." Patricia handed her a second envelope. Notice of intent to seek primary custody of the minor children, based on moral fitness concerns. "We'll see you in court, Mrs. Patterson." We left them standing there. As we walked down the stairs, I could hear Martha crying and John's voice trying to comfort her. The next week was chaos. Martha moved out of our apartment and into a hotel. She couldn't go to John's place because, as I'd predicted, he'd broken things off with her immediately after being served. The school district launched an ethics investigation into her conduct with a parent. Oliver and Catherine were devastated, but not entirely surprised. Oliver had known something was wrong, and Catherine had heard us arguing in hushed tones late at night. Cindy called me, upset. "Louis, Martha's been telling people you were abusive, that you drove her to this. I wanted you to know what she's saying." "Let her say it," I replied. "I have documentation of everything. The truth will come out." And it did. In the divorce proceedings, Patricia presented the evidence methodically. The photos of Martha entering John's apartment with a key. The fake Tampa workshop that never existed. The concert tickets. Oliver's testimony about the phone call. John Whitmore's own statement, admitting the affair and revealing that Martha had lied to him about being divorced. Martha's attorney tried to paint me as controlling and emotionally distant, but there was no evidence. No texts, no emails, no witnesses to any abuse or neglect. Just Martha's word against documented proof of her infidelity. The judge was not sympathetic. "Mrs. Patterson, you engaged in an extramarital affair while representing yourself as divorced to your paramour, lied to your family about your whereabouts, and violated professional ethics by becoming involved with a parent of one of your students. This court finds that Mr. Patterson has grounds for divorce based on adultery." The property division was straightforward. Our apartment and most of our joint assets went to me. Martha received a small settlement and her own vehicle. I got primary custody of Oliver and Catherine, with Martha having visitation rights every other weekend. The school district's investigation concluded that while Martha hadn't violated any specific policy, John's daughter Emma had been transferred to another teacher's class as soon as the affair became known. Her conduct reflected poorly on her professional judgment. She was formally reprimanded and placed on probation. She kept her job, but her reputation was shattered. John Whitmore, meanwhile, had his own problems. His in-laws, his late wife's parents, heard about the affair and were furious that he'd become involved with someone while Emma was still grieving her mother. They threatened to seek grandparent visitation rights if he didn't demonstrate better judgment. As for Martha and John's relationship, it imploded completely. Whatever connection they'd felt in those secretive Tuesday and Thursday afternoons couldn't survive the harsh light of reality. John wanted nothing to do with her after being dragged into a divorce proceeding. Martha had burned both relationships for nothing. November turned into December, and I began rebuilding my life with Oliver and Catherine. We adopted a routine: dinner together every night, homework at the kitchen table, walks with Biscuit through the neighborhood as the weather grew cooler. One evening, Oliver asked me the question I'd been dreading. "Dad, did you ever love Mom?" "Very much," I said honestly. "For many years." "What happened?" "I think she stopped loving herself first. Then she stopped loving our life together. Instead of talking to me about it, working through it, she looked for happiness somewhere else." "But happiness doesn't work that way. You can't fix what's broken inside by finding someone new." Catherine, who'd been quiet, spoke up. "Do you hate her?" "I thought about that." "No. I'm angry and hurt and disappointed. But hate requires more energy than I'm willing to give her. I just want to move forward." And that's what we did. Martha tried to reach out several times in those first months after the divorce. Text messages apologizing, asking if we could talk, suggesting that maybe we'd been too hasty. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard that she'd moved into a small rental house on the other side of St. Petersburg. She was still teaching, still going through the motions, but the spark that had once made her a beloved teacher had dimmed. Parents requested different classrooms. Colleagues kept their distance. John Whitmore focused on his daughter, on rebuilding the trust he'd damaged. Emma thrived with a new teacher and seemed relieved to have her father's full attention again. As for me, I discovered something unexpected. I liked my life. Without the constant criticism, the walking on eggshells, the sense that I was never quite good enough, I felt lighter. The golden retriever, Biscuit, who'd witnessed all the tension of those final months with Martha, seemed more relaxed too. He followed me everywhere, as if afraid I might disappear, but gradually he settled into the new normal. One February afternoon, almost 4 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into John Whitmore at a hardware store. We both froze, then he approached me cautiously. "Louis, I owe you an apology. You already apologized. In your deposition." "I know, but I needed to say it to your face. I was selfish and stupid. I let loneliness override my better judgment, and I'm sorry for the pain I caused you and your family." I studied him. He looked older, more worn down. "How's Emma?" "She's doing well. Better than she has in a while, actually. Her new teacher is wonderful." He paused. "Martha tried to contact me a few weeks ago. I didn't respond." "Good. Can I ask you something?" John said. "When you came to my apartment that day, before you served the papers, why did you do that? Why warn me?" "Because Emma didn't deserve to be blindsided." "Neither did you really. Martha lied to both of us in different ways. I wanted you to understand what was about to happen." He nodded slowly. "Thank you. For whatever it's worth, I think you handled this with more grace than I would have." We parted ways, and I realized I didn't feel angry at him anymore. He'd been a pawn in Martha's game, just like I had been. The difference was that I'd chosen to stop playing. Spring came to Florida with its usual humidity and afternoon thunderstorms. Oliver graduated from high school with plans to attend the University of Florida in the fall. Catherine made the honor roll and joined the debate team. Life moved forward. Martha attended Oliver's graduation, sitting in a different section, leaving before the reception. Oliver hugged her briefly, but didn't invite her to the family dinner we'd planned. She'd earned that distance. The revenge I'd sought hadn't been dramatic or violent. It had been methodical, legal, and completely devastating to Martha's carefully constructed lies. She'd lost her marriage, her reputation, her lover, and the respect of her children. She'd done it to herself, really. I just made sure the truth came to light. Some people might call what I did cruel, but I called it justice. In the end, the worst punishment for Martha wasn't anything I'd orchestrated. It was the life she had to live now, alone, with the knowledge that she destroyed something good for something that was never real in the first place. As for me, I had my children, my dog, my work, and my integrity intact. I discovered that sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate or dramatic. Sometimes it's just living well. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.